Hey guys, so my husband actually acknowledged something really important earlier this year, and he acknowledged the fact that I've made over £1 million from public speaking. I can't lie, I was quite shocked. I was quite taken back actually, if anything, because when I first started, I never set out to make $1 million. I didn't know it was possible. I didn't think it was possible. And I thank God, most importantly, by the grace of God, that 12 years later, we can say that. But I feel like it's really important that I give back to people who are at the beginning of their journey, middle of their journey, or may even be in a place where they have made over 7 figures, but they just need to hear that reminder and that wisdom. And these are 5 things that have helped me over my journey. And I think that a lot of people don't actually understand the public speaking industry. There's a lot of people that don't know you can get paid for it. There's a lot of people that don't even understand the different breaking downs of it. I always say the fact that I've been able to make over 16 different incomes through my voice. So that is from consultancy to coaching to public speaking, keynote speaking. Gosh, there's so many things that I've been able to do: voiceover work, brand partnerships, YouTube, content online, not just on YouTube, but Instagram. There's been so many different things I've been able to tap into. And a lot of people don't understand how wide and how you can actually tap into multiple different incomes. But right now, I actually want to talk about public speaking, keynote speaking, all things emceeing, hosting, when you are doing B2B and even B2C actually. The first thing I would say is this: if you're not invited to the table, build the table yourself and invite the people who don't want you in. I want to say this again. If you are feeling like you are not getting the opportunities, if you're feeling like nobody wants to book you, nobody wants to see you, there comes a time where you have to stop waiting on other people to open a door for you. You have to build that door and open the door for yourself. And I remember when I first started speaking, I had a lot of things that were said over me. I was a 15-year-old girl. I was rough, coming from the streets of East London, grew up in a single parent household, was speaking a lot of slang. Back in the day, I used to have a heavy potty mouth, used to swear a lot. God forgive me. He did forgive me, amen. Didn't really know how to navigate this industry. I had a mentor at the time, still is a mentor to me, Action Jackson, shout him out. And he was the first ever, I would say, example of public speaking. Came into my school when I was in year 6, actually, when I was 11 years old. Then he came back to my secondary school when I was in 6th form, in year 12, when we had just started year 12 and we needed a motivational assembly. And I remember literally, I knew I had a gift of words. I knew I wanted to use my words to empower. So funny enough, in year 11, a lot of people don't know this, we'll probably insert some clips that people are gonna be really shocked about. In year 11, I actually ran for young mayor of Newham. I came 3rd out of 54 candidates, and my passion was to motivate and inspire young people and to let them know that, there is more to what you can see. I always say that you are not a product of your environment, you are a product of your thinking, you are a product of your vision. And I always say that for me, I never walked by sight, I walked by insight. I knew that, the sight that I was accustomed to wasn't healthy. Listen, I had people who were unfortunately shot on my road. I had people who were unfortunately assaulted on my road. I had people who had really encountered violence. I came from a very violent area, and Newham is actually one of the poorest boroughs in London. That's the area that I was coming from. And I didn't really have examples growing up, I'm grateful for my mum, who worked really hard, but she's in the medical industry. I have my brother who works really hard and he's in the tech industry, but I had never really seen anybody make money from their words. If I'm being honest, the people who I knew that made money from their words were the drug dealers in my area. They were the ones that were able to speak and actually let us know that they were selling some dope. And the truth is, I didn't have any examples of speaking other than teaching and lawyers. So growing up, I was always looking for a bit of what I wanted to do in other women. And I remember there was 2 women that really inspired me: Olivia and Annalise Keating. Now, obviously on the other side, that's not their real names. It's Kerry Washington and it's also Viola Davis, right? But their characters, in terms of Olivia Pope, was a woman of justice, how she worked with the White House and how she used her voice literally to advocate. But the scandal literally came up with a lot of scandal. So, it was a bit messy in terms of Olivia Pope. She was doing a lot of nonsense with Fritz, if you know, in terms of Fritz. And Annalise Keating, same thing. You know, she had a way of basically encouraging law and teaching law to her students, and she was always in these crazy scenarios with her students, and it was actually really inspiring. It was really inspiring to see Black women who were using their voice and getting paid for their voice and pushing for justice. And those were the three things I wanted to do. I wanted to use my voice, I wanted to get paid for my voice, and I wanted to push for something that was just. Now, the other example I had was teaching. So growing up, you know, I remember when I was in year 10 and my school was able to get us work experience, and I was given curries. No disrespect to curries at all, but unfortunately our work experience was quite limited, and we didn't really get the opportunity to really basically tap into anything other than maybe a ASDA or a curries. And I remember literally thinking to myself, maybe I should just be a teacher. And if I'm being honest with you, it's not to say that teaching or law is basically degrading. It's basically to say those are the only examples I had. A lot of people wonder why I'm so passionate about being vocal about my speaking career and being vocal about the fact that I have made £1 million and I have been able to relocate to Dubai by the grace of God, been able to set up multiple companies. My husband and I have been able to found and do many initiatives, some that I'm public about, some that I'm actually not so public about, simply because not everything's for the internet. But you know, by the grace of God, God has shown me that it's important that I give back, and it's important that I now do let other people know that there is a blueprint, should I say, and that is, you know, I didn't have a blueprint growing up in terms of coming from ends, but I always said, God, raise me up to be that blueprint by the grace of God. And I thank God that I can now help and be a small help. I'm not saying I'm the biggest help. I'm not saying that I am the standard. You know, for me, Jesus Christ is the standard, amen. But for those who are not spiritual and don't believe in Jesus Christ, I'm not necessarily saying I'm the standard, but I am saying that there's some things that I've been able to do that hopefully you can take away. I just wanted to give a bit of a background story to where I come from. The fact that I didn't come from a polished background. I went to a state school, slang talking. I was exposed to a lot of violence, crime. My friends at the age of 15 were doing fraud. There was a lot of choices I could have made. At 15, I made the choice to run for young mayor of Newham because a few months prior to that, I nearly got stabbed by a friend that I thought was my friend. He set me up and he nearly stabbed me. And no, not him, sorry, his friend nearly stabbed me. He set me up, he was there, he was watching it. And that knife was 8 inches and it nearly went into my abdomen. And if it wasn't for the grace of God, I would have probably been a statistic. By the grace of God, I can now say more or less 12, not even 12, but 13 years later, that I can testify and say that God really saved and intervened on that day. So let me go to the 5 things. So I know some of you guys are getting ready for the juice. So what are the 5 things that have helped me? Number 1, the first thing I would say that has helped me, as I said, going back, is you need to be able to create those opportunities for yourself. When I first started speaking, as I said, there's a lot of people who didn't want to hear me speak. There's a lot of people who didn't want to pay me to speak. There's a lot of people that were looking at me thinking, what does this girl surely have to say? She's 15, 16 years old. She's young. And when I first started speaking, I actually started running assemblies and I started running sessions in my school. So when I ran for Young Mayor, I had to do this huge campaign around Westfield. We were terrorizing people. We had to do this huge campaign. And I thought of different creative ways to basically get my voice heard across the borough of Newham. And I've learnt these skills and I applied it to my speaking career very early on. So at the age of 16, I was thinking, how is it that I can get myself out there? How is it that I can basically let people know that I have a voice? There's 2 things I actually did when I first started speaking. I had a blog and I was doing videos in my school. So I was basically running sessions in my school. I was running like motivational workshops in my school with some of my friends, funny enough. Some of them were coming in, I'm grateful. So there was about 12 people in the room, and every single week for about 6 weeks, I was running sessions and getting my friend Darnell, I'm gonna shout out Darnell, I'm gonna put in a picture with me and Darnell when we were kids, and we was running these sessions. He would have the camera, he would rent it from the media department. Can't really say rent because we didn't have money back then, but we take it from the media department. They let us kindly have it, and he would film it and I'd upload these sessions on YouTube. You know what, I'm gonna insert even a video of me when I was speaking at the age of 16, some of these sessions. Now, in these sessions, I'm basically teaching things, and Jackson was so kind to actually lend me some speaking material, some motivational material. And I was going through his material and teaching his material to these students. So now we are doing these sessions over 6 weeks. And at the time I was running, as I said, a motivational blog. And I'll probably put some screenshots here, because trust me, as I said, I've got evidence for days. I'll put some screenshots here, and literally, you know, when it comes to the blog at one point, I remember, after a year, the blog, I remember, and bear in mind, this is 2013, 2014, when this blog is coming out, right? This blog was getting about 70,000 views. It hit 70,000 views in a year. So a lot of young people were sharing it. I was sharing it on my Twitter, Tumblr at the time, sharing it across my BlackBerry Messenger, my WhatsApp, and people were really pushing it by the grace of God. And, you know, people were getting to now know me as a motivational girl, right? And then now I'm doing the videos, I'm putting the videos out, and I'm putting the videos out on YouTube, I'm putting the videos out on Twitter quite a lot, actually, and people now started associating Hayley was speaking. And the reason why I share this is simply because of the fact that some of you guys may be in a place where you're waiting for a particular opportunity, and sometimes you just have to create it. Sometimes you have to utilize the resources that you have. And I have to go back to the Bible here. When God said to Moses, what's in your hand? You know, for me, I realized that, you know, I didn't have the stage. I had a classroom though. I had a classroom, and I had to utilize that classroom consistently. And something I'm always talking about is visibility. It's not in the views, it's in the consistency. And I was consistently showing up to 12 different people. And now I can come and say that I've spoken to over 3 million people across the world. But it was 12 people that I started with in my secondary school, my state secondary school in the borough of Newham, where speakers are not raised, where people are not paid, where we are not shown the blueprint of how to make £1 million. But I thank God that he gave me the wisdom at the age of 16 to use my classroom. Now, fast forward to that, in 2017, I went through a bit of a stage where, no, not even 2017, well, 2017 and 2018, 2017 actually. I went through a stage where basically I wasn't getting booked again. Nobody wanted to hear me book. Nobody wanted to hear me speak. And I remember literally thinking to myself, how is it that I can get viewed? How is it that I can get, you know, seen? And I started something called the Building You Masterclass. And I was basically doing this masterclass in John Lewis in Stratford. I literally just said, hey, I want to do motivational workshops every single week in John Lewis, Stratford for free. And I literally was gathering these young people. At first it started with 2 people, first it started with 3 people, 4 people, then it got to a time where we were gathering over 50, 40 people in Stratford, Westfield, and it got to the point where they chucked us out. At first they just thought, we were just people coming to study and stuff like that. Then they realized that it was actually getting really big. It got to a point where I was actually able to get the co-founders of Brixton Soup Kitchen actually to come and speak as well. So I was coming to bring guest speakers because I was young. I was like 19, I think, at the time. Where was I getting the money to rent a place? Now, listen, you may not want to be like me because I did get in trouble. But one thing about me is I did not care. Sometimes you should not care, and take this with caution. Hey, don't come and do anything illegal and say that Hayley told you to do it. I'm not advocating for that. But what I'm saying is that I didn't want to make any excuses. I literally have this mentality, and my husband knows this. It's either excuses or execution. And I just wanted to focus on the execution part. So I literally done the masterclass. I'm going to put in a clip here as well in terms of the masterclass. And in that masterclass, we were going in, I was motivating them. And then it got to a point where I started charging a little bit of money, £5, everybody £5. And then I used that money to actually now start renting a Holiday Inn in East London. And in that Holiday Inn, I was able to run a session, a Building You Masterclass session, every single month for 18 months. There'd be times even I went to uni. In the middle of that, I went to University of Kent, and I'll travel down from Canterbury every month at least to make sure I was at that masterclass. And it went from literally, as I said, to 5 people to 10 people to the point where we had our own hotel renting, and there was 50 people coming every single month. We had guest speakers, we had had the BJs, we had the Nissy T's, we had the Kenny and Mafidon, who were my friends at the time, and they came in and was able to pour in, and I'm definitely going to make sure I put in another clip here. But there was it literally got to a point where I was putting out so much content from literally me utilizing my own opportunities and knowing what's in my hand and creating the door. And guess what? Because I created my own door, people now started knocking on my door that I created. And now companies were saying, hey, we want to hear you speak. You know, I had PwC, JP Morgan, in my early days of speaking, reaching out to me. Can you imagine? I'm 20 years old and I'm having some of the biggest organizations inquire about my speaking. And I remember literally thinking to myself, wow, it's just because of the fact that I chose to create a door. And I didn't feel sorry for myself. I didn't feel, you know, like, oh, why is no one checking me? And let me just say this to you, right? One of the worst things you can have is entitlement. And I find that we have a lot of people who feel entitled to particular opportunities. I want to tell you this, and it's something that my mentor, Dr. Eric Thomas, has taught me. He has told me constantly, not even me directly, literally through his videos, he's literally just reminded me, listen, nobody cares, work harder. Just keep on working harder. Let them want to book you. Let them want to work with you by just being consistent. So remember, I just said creating the doors is the number one. Number two is content. So if there's something that you haven't learned, is that all my speaking engagements from when I first started, they have been captured. If not all, I definitely would say at least 90%. I have captured so many things, all on my Facebook, some have been archived, Instagram. I'm telling you, I've got on my Google Drive across 4 different emails. I've got content for days. My husband and I have hard drives over hard drives under hard drives. We have spent thousands. I actually believe I've probably spent about 6 figures on just content alone. I honestly believe that I have spent over 6 figures on paying different videographers, paying different people to invest into my brand. And the reason why is because I believe there has to be a standard with your brand. And listen, I know that, you know, you may not have the money, but let me tell you something. At the age of 16, when I first started speaking, the 3 things I actually taught myself to do. I taught myself to communicate well, I taught myself to edit, and I taught myself how to build websites. So a lot of people don't actually know that I've been building websites from the age of 16. I've been editing since the age of 16. So I'm actually advanced in editing, I'm advanced in Premiere Pro, I'm advanced in terms of editing websites. There's actually a few people I've built websites for that I talk to till this day. When I was in uni and I didn't have any money, I literally was charging people like £300 for me to build their websites. I literally built websites for churches in the past. I built websites for entrepreneurs in the past. I've actually built websites for speakers in the past, funny enough, because I just needed to make some money, man. I had to make some mullah, and you know, I had to make the money to invest in my own content, if I'm being honest with you. One of my non-negotiables, and my husband knows that, for every speaking engagement, I have to have a videographer. Everyone knows that. My previous agents knew that. My PA knows that. My team members know that. Haley has to come with a videographer. My clients know that. Everything has to be captured. Even if I use the content tomorrow, next year, 10 years time, it's going to come in worthy. And the reason why I know the content's going to come in worthy is because there's many clips that you would have seen in just this one video that is spamming back to 2013. And I have the opportunity that I can put it in here and show you what a 12-year journey to £1 million has looked like. So these are the first 2. Let's go into number 3. The third thing that I learned is actually from a former mentor of mine. His name was Renee, and he told me the most powerful thing you can do as a speaker is learn how to tell stories. Now, you probably haven't realized from the beginning of this video, I've probably told you about 5 different stories, and guess what? I have a million more. Your story is what makes humans connect. Your story is what gets people to really listen to you, not by their ears, but by their heart. And one of the things I always say is a powerful speaker does not grab people's ears, they grab people's hearts, because that is going to be the thing that people will remember you for the rest of your life. And how I actually started now going into corporate, I've never actually told this story publicly before. I had the opportunity to speak at a university panel. So let me tell you the journey of how my speaking journey actually went and how I actually started scaling financially. So I started first speaking in schools. Now, schools is not a bad thing, but at the time I wasn't getting paid a lot of money. And it was just about getting the bag. To be honest, I was getting paid quite a lot of money for my age. You know, I was literally 18 years old and I'm getting paid hundreds for an hour's work. I'm getting paid hundreds for a full school day, right? So let me not complain. I was getting quite a bit of money for my age. But as I started to get older, I started to feel like my passion for young people, I didn't want to charge for it. So I remember my first actual ever speaking engagement, I did it for my former secondary school and I charged them over £1,000, right? When I was 17 years old. I charged them, was I 18? It was my first year of uni, so I would have been 18. I charged them £1,000 for a full day, basically 9 to 3 workshop with different year groups. And I remember I will never forget how that made me feel. So I can't complain. I was making quite a bit of money very early on. So I'm making hundreds, thousands actually from schools. But my passion was this. Let me tell you, I got convicted. The conviction was I wanted to give back to my school for free. I wanted to actually speak at schools for free. I didn't actually like the idea of me charging for schools, and that's just me. I didn't want that conviction. So I wanted to be able to mentor young people for free, give back to young people for free. Anybody that knows my heart is for young people, especially the young girls from ends, especially the young girls and the young people who are coming from areas like mine, the Croydons, the Peckhams, you know, the Newhams. I have a heart for those schools, and I didn't want to charge premium prices. And I knew that at this point I was getting exposed to basically better business models and getting exposed to other speakers that were teaching me more so how I can navigate the game. So I navigated from schools to now universities. So now I started speaking at universities. At this point, I was booked and busy across the Afro-Caribbean Society. And I had spoken, in my time of speaking, I had spoken at about 28 different ACSs across the UK. And 2016 was the year that I released my first book. It was self-published. It was called The ABCs to Student Success. And I contacted every ACS president that I knew, found it from LinkedIn to Twitter, a lot of them on Twitter at the day, dropping them a DM saying, hey, I got this book. I want to come and speak at your ACS event. I would love to come and speak. At the time, I was talking about mental health. And, you know, the reason why I talk about your story is simply because my story of mental health is one of the reasons why I became quite a booked and busy speaker in my early years of speaking. So just to give you some context, when I was in 2016, I got into a really dark place and I tried to take my life multiple times. And literally that experience, I went vocal about it. I shared it, and a lot of corporations, a lot of universities, because it happened in my first year of university when I was going to University of Sussex, literally a lot of universities reached out to me and were like, I want you to come and basically do a session to share your story. And I went all over with that story. I've gone to so many different countries with that story, so many different conferences. And I remember literally thinking to myself, wow, like I cannot believe that, you know, this story that I was actually quite ashamed of has been the story that's opened up so many doors for me. And I just want to say there may be particular stories, maybe particular things that you've gone through that you may feel like this is not going to open up doors for me. Listen, I was an 18-year-old girl who tried to take her life multiple times. I was told that nobody want to hear that type of story. That story is too dark. And I want to say majority of my speaking money, I'm talking about a big part of my 6-figure, you know, even though I've made $1 million now, I'm talking about a high number of the 6-figure came from my work with mental health and being able to share that story and being able to provide strategy, consultancy, and even being able to provide multiple keynotes and multiple workshops, not just in the UK, in the USA, in Africa, here in the Middle East. That story that somebody told me that nobody want to hear is actually going to be the thing that's going to change my life. So there may be a story that you may be sitting on, and going back to what I said, I was in a university speaking on a panel, and there was a huge director for a very, very big organization. Very big organization. I'll just say the name of it, JP Morgan. And he had heard my story. He was very moved by my story. He ended up opening up about his story about somebody close to him who he wanted them to basically be motivated by my story. And off the back of that, he invited me to go into JP at the age of 20. And that was my first corporate gig. My first corporate gig, it was the most money I had ever seen in my life off one talk, 45 minutes. And the funny thing is, I got a shout out my bro, JR, who is actually editing this. He's my editor now, by the grace of God, and working on the team. He was the person that filmed that. So bro, I just want to shout you out. Not too sure if you have the footage. I have the footage, so I'm going to put it in for you to edit it in. But shout out the fact that, you know, I can have people who can be on the journey with me, and the fact that, you know, the same person who's editing my videos now is the same person who came to my first paid corporate speaking engagement, you know. So I just want to give you a lot of love, you and Janelle, JR, thank you for you guys supporting. And, you know, not to, you know, bait out their business, but Janelle was probably my first ever friend that actually motivated me into speaking, because this has been my friend since we were like 14, 15. And that's now you know, that's my sister, but that's now his wife. So it's just really funny. Anyway, I'm going off the tangent. Storytelling is important, guys. Storytelling is important, and I have a million stories for you guys. Number 4, let me tell you something that is really important, and I believe it is probably the thing that has kept me. It's been the thing that has allowed me to grow. Adapt quickly. And the reason why I say this is in 2020, COVID hit and a lot of speakers were taken out of the industry. When I started in 2013, 2014, they are not the same people who I'm on the journey with now. There was particular speakers who were starting with me. There was particular speakers who were getting paid like me, traveling like me, and they are not in the same industry and they are not in the same place because COVID took them out. I remember at the beginning of 2020, before COVID actually took place, I had a coach. So I invested into coaches very early on, mentors very early on. So I actually paid a 4-figure amount to actually learn from a woman that I was very inspired by. And I'll shout her out, Patrice Washington. I always shout her out. She's like my auntie now, but she was my first ever coach. So I invested into her very early on. In the beginning of 2020, I jumped on a call with her and she said something to me. She said to me, Hayley, you need to go virtual now. You've done a lot of in-person, and I know you've made a lot of money from in-person speaking engagements, but it seems some things are happening and you need to go virtual. Now, I was intending to go virtual and announce that I was going virtual in around June of 2020. But in that month, and I had that call with her in January of 2020, I felt her words. And you know, the scripture that I think of is, in a multitude of counsel, there is safety. In a multitude of counsel, there is wisdom. And I took that on to say, this is a woman who has made multi-millions from speaking, by the way. And I love learning from those who have gone above and beyond. So when I say being adaptable is so important, and this is why I have to put it as number 4, you need to adapt quickly. So in January 2020, I got that call and I went for a whole rebrand. I went through, literally I had quite a bit of money that was stacked up. I literally went for a whole rebrand. I literally booked a photographer, videographer, did my show reel, did my website. Currently in the rebranding moment of my website right now. I had just been paid a huge 5-figure sum from a big company in America. It was my first ever 5-figure speaking engagement, and I had just been paid for it. So I spent a lot of that money, not 5-figure amount, but I spent a hefty 4-figure amount on my rebrand. And I invested into that rebrand and announced, hey, I'm virtual now, guys. I'm doing virtual and in-person speaking engagements. Little did I know, in March 2020, everything was shut down and the whole world will go virtual. Now, a lot of organizations in that time were dealing with mental health issues, burnout. They needed a speaker who was going to be able to come and speak about mental health. They needed a speaker who was ready and who had already was a virtual speaker and was very visible about it. In that time, I had multiple speaking engagements being cancelled, but I also had multiple speaking engagements being booked, and I had 5-figure speaking engagements in sitting down virtually. And that was the first time I'd ever done a 5-figure speaking engagement virtually. So the year before, I did my first ever 5-figure in person, but now I was tapping into the 5-figure virtually. I didn't know it was possible. So I was just here thinking, wow, like, to know that my adaptability allowed me to not lose money, but actually gain money in the time when a lot of people's businesses were sinking, a lot of people were quitting. I was able to leverage that and be able to make money when people were losing money, just because I adapted. And the final thing, what would I say for you in terms of number 5? For anybody who, as I said, you've been inspired, before we move on, I just ask, please subscribe, share this with anybody you know who needs to hear this, who needs to be motivated, who needs to be reminded that these things are possible. Please share, like, comment, let me know that you're actually being blessed by this video, and let me know if you want me to do more speaking videos. I'm talking about me talking about my speaking journey, actually doing actual breakdowns. I'm happy to actually run some game on here on my YouTube to do some breakdowns on things that I've learned, but you need to comment. I won't know if you don't comment, so you need to comment right now. But let's get back to number 5. The 5th thing I want to say is when they zigzag. And what do I mean by that? There's a lot of people that are trying to follow the trend. And I remember reading this quote that says, only dead fish go with the flow. And I truly do believe that. You should not go with the flow. You should go with your God-ordained assignment. And I remember literally it was in 2021 when I felt this pull from God to start being open about my faith. I'll be very honest with you, when I first started speaking, I didn't really mention God. Even though I got saved at 2016, I wanted to double down on mental health. I didn't really want to talk about God because I felt like it would close a lot of doors for me. There was a lot of things I didn't want to share about my life. There was a lot of things I didn't want to share online and share because I was scared that I would lose out on my corporate engagements. Even the fact that in 2020, I went into rap, I became a rapper. Maybe I should insert, actually, I don't want copyright issues, so maybe I can't insert the song per se, but maybe I'll insert a clip of the music video. Yes, I was a rapper. I was releasing music in 2020, and I heard people saying that, Hayley, if you start doing music, corporates weren't going to take you seriously. I literally had a lot of things being said in my whole speaking career, and I learned this one thing: when they zig, zag, which means whatever they tell you to do the complete opposite and double down on it. I have people telling me, don't talk about God, don't open up about God. Let me tell you, in a few weeks' time, I'm about to speak in a stadium in Africa at one of Africa's biggest youth events in front of 30,000 people in a stadium. Till this date, it's been my biggest booking till this date, and they want me to speak about God. People told me not to speak about God. I have speaking engagements right now, inquiries across the world asking me to come and speak about God, asking me to come and speak at this conference or that conference to share my faith in God. And I sometimes wonder, if I didn't listen, what would have happened? And I'm not saying that you need to be like me and you need to be talking about God. Of course, be led. But I'm just saying that someone is going to tell you not to do something, and I want you to do it. Hear this from me, I want you to do it. Eric Thomas is a motivational speaker who is known for his voice. He's known for his authority. Some people say he's always shouting. But one thing I would say about E.T. is one of the highest paid speakers. He is the #1 motivational speaker in the world. I'm grateful to even say that he's a mentor, and he's been not only just a mentor, a sound voice, a coach in my life, and he's helped me over the years. Eric Thomas is the #1 motivational speaker. People told him he ain't gonna get paid for shouting. He's not gonna get paid with his story. He is getting flown across the world. He is getting paid 6 figures per talk. So when I tell you zig, zag, I know what I'm talking about. Toby Nigwe is another person who was told multiple times, don't include your wife in your music videos. Let them think you're single. In every single music video, he has included his wife, and he zagged when they zig. There's another person I've got to mention, Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey is teaching people how to build wealth without increasing debt, and he doesn't believe in having any debt. He wants you to have no debt at all. And people came and said, it's impossible for you to increase wealth with debt. And he's been teaching people, millions of people in fact, how to increase their wealth and how to clear their debt. And these are the people who are profound speakers. Toby, even though he's a rapper, he's also a speaker too, actually. These are people who have been able to build up brands, and they have stood out. Toby now has a deal with Moncler, with Reebok. It's because of the fact that they doubled down on everything that they told them not to do. And I just want to say to you, listen, I would not be where I am right now. I would not be able to have the opportunity to have a team, a full-on team on my speaking brand full-time, having an editor, having a marketing specialist, having literally my husband as a director in our business as well, having an executive PA. I would not be having a full-time team, a business through the area of speaking. And if you told this 15-year-old girl that this is what I would be doing, that 12 years later I would be doing this, I would have said to you, no way. But persistency, consistency, being led by your insight and not your sight. Most importantly, being able to zag when they zig, being able to understand the power of your story, adapting easily, being able to create the door when there is no door. These are the things that have helped me out. And you know, if there is any speakers that are listening and you want to add some value, please comment below. What has helped you out in terms of your scaling and your speaking? What has worked for you? I want it to be a place where people can learn. But I just wanted this to be a give back. I wanted this to be a give back because, as I said, when my husband came and notified me this year that, Hayley, you have made 7 figures from your voice and you made 7 figures from public speaking, it's still quite hard for me to actually take it in. I remember when I was on Lamide's podcast, and Lamide was, I introduced myself. She said, introduce yourself. And I said all these things and I never mentioned the figure. And she said, well, why don't you announce that you've made 7 figures from your voice? What? And she was like, yeah, you've made 7 figures from public speaking. And I remember getting so thrown off by that because I completely forgot to mention it. And I'll tell you why, guys. And this is why it's so important to use your words to speak life and to be somebody that encourages others. Simply because, you know, I remember in the early years of my speaking, when I first started sharing how much I was getting paid, I actually had a lot of voices that would tell me I'm prideful, I'm money hungry, the love of money. It came from Christians in terms of love of money. And I was just kind of like, I don't want to share how much I'm getting paid anymore. You know, I had some family members that didn't like it. I had some family members who felt entitled to it. I just didn't want to really mention it. And by the grace of God, I don't even see it as, you know, I've been able to make this. I see it as, God, I've been able to do this so I can give back to your people and give back to the world and give back and give thanks to God, you know. I've been able to tap into many different initiatives that I'm passionate about because I'm financially free. And I find that with a lot of people, they are doing speaking for the wrong motives. They want the platform, they want the mic, they want the influence, but I promise you, you need to be somebody who is a person of value and a person of impact, and the income and the influence will always follow. If you lead by impact, the income and the influence will always follow. So I hope this blesses you. As I said, the 5 things that have helped me scale the way I have scaled, and I pray that you can be that blueprint for somebody else. But guys, as I said, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you want more of this. And don't forget, if you want to take that speaker assessment, it is free and it's in my bio. I want to see how I can help you and give you some free game, instant game. As I said, as soon as you do that assessment, you will get automatically a PDF that I put together that is helping you in terms of scaling your speaking career. All right, guys, thank you so much. God bless. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and share with somebody who may be blessed by this. Until next time, guys, see you later.